guys, thank you again for joining this week. Excuse me. We have a great show today. I'm excited to talk about. Today, we're going to focus on interviewing, and the topic is interviewing like a closer. So, for any of you that are joining, please, as always, any questions from this moment on, share them in the chat. My podcast producer James will field all those, and then halfway through we'll take a break and answer some of them. For any of you guys that haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please subscribe to Unfiltered Medical Sales Coaching, and you'll be able to get a copy of this podcast along with all the other content that we're sending out there. If you guys want to, see this live today, we're on Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and then audio, we're on basically every podcast platform that's out there, from Apple TV, iHeartRadio, Spotify, etc. So please subscribe. Definitely send in your questions throughout. We're going to take a break a couple times throughout the show just to handle any questions that you may have. Excuse me. All right. So to just dive right in, guys, the interview process, as we know, is getting tougher and tougher, where there's just so much competition out there. Every opportunity that I post, I get 300 to 500 applications, and that's literally within 2 to 3 days. So you have to realize how competitive this field is. Everyone wants to get into it. It's an outstanding field to get into. So you got to do everything in your power to stand out. And that's from the resume, but most importantly, is the interview. Because resumes get you interviews get you jobs. So you're never going to just have a great resume that's going to be so amazing that someone's going to say, I'm not going to even speak to this person. They're so good. Let's hire them. Obviously, we know that's never happened in the history of medical sales. So the interview process, you really have to interview like a closer. And so what does that mean? So we're going to go over a bunch of topics today. Definitely, again, I would like to take questions throughout the show, but we don't have time for that because we'll get sidetracked. Save them. Send them in and we'll answer them, a couple times throughout the show. So the first part is the mindset. You have to shift your mindset, guys. Okay. A lot of you get intimidated because you say, I don't have the experience, and that's why I'm getting passed up. And it's just not true. Every single candidate in the history of mankind didn't have experience at some time. So they have to get the job to get more experience. So when people break in, it's because they have the mindset. You have to have that right mindset. And that is starting with, what are your transferable skills? So it doesn't matter if you're a medical sales rep, seasoned or not. You could be a lawyer, a waiter, a teacher, a nurse, a coach. I've helped people from all different backgrounds transition into medical sales that had no sales experience. And the main thing they do is highlighting their transferable skills. For instance, if you're a teacher, teachers present all the time, and you're going to be doing that all the time during your sales presentations. So teachers make great medical sales reps because they know how to present. They know how to get in front of a crowd and really present whatever their product is. They're doing this all day long with their students. So they're not intimidated to stand up in front of a room. And for some of you that haven't been in sales yet, and you get up in front of, especially when you're in a conference room, and I've had, hundreds of these throughout my career where you're presenting to a hospital, a board of directors, a group of, I've had up to over 100 physicians join in an auditorium. You get in front of that room, and it's intimidating when you get in front of them. So when you have these skills, I'm only giving one, you have to highlight them. If you're a waiter, you're constantly getting in front of people. You're working, trying to sell them to buy more. So whether it's to have a drink, your goal is to get that checkup as much as possible. So you're always upselling them. All the places that I worked at, when I was a busboy and a waiter, they always pressured the staff to get their, price per customer up as much as possible. And that's always offering them a drink, trying to get them to buy a dessert, trying to offer them, the higher price ticket items, to sell more, because at the end of the day, you're going to get a bigger tip. So, that's selling, guys. You're making someone do something that they didn't come in with that intention. It's exact what sales is. You're going at the doctor's office. They're not waking up in the morning saying, when is Joe going to come in today and sell me a new device? I'm really excited for him to come in. It never happens. They're worried about their patients, their practice, their staff. They have a million other things on their mind. The last thing they're thinking about is, I can't wait for the rep to come in to sell me something. So you need these skills and show how you can do that to be a good rep. So have that confidence, guys, that you can do this job. And you need that from jump. If you don't have any transferable skills, almost everyone that wants this can show something that's a transferable skill for this role. So you have to be able to be self-aware and know what that is, and then change your mindset to, I can do this. Whatever they throw at you, yeah, I can do this. I've done this in the past. It may not be to a physician, in a hospital setting or in an office-based setting, but I have done it in the past. I have handled objections. I did close people. I did present. So I always probe. A lot of you don't even realize this when you're just talking to family and friends. I got friends that I know would make great sales reps because they're great in conversation, because they're constantly probing and asking me what's going on in my life. How's my wife doing? How's my business? What do you think of, whatever's going on in the world? That's a skill, to keep that conversation going and to constantly be probing / asking questions. It's not easy, because there's some days you're just not in the mood, so to have that ability, that's huge, guys. So don't downplay anything, and one of the most important skills that we all have, because we're all capable of doing this, is bringing energy and excitement. You have to do that. Guys, I've seen experienced reps lose out to entry-level individuals because they didn't come with any excitement. You don't want to be that. This isn't just for entry level. This is also for advanced, experienced reps out there that are struggling to get a new job. Excuse me. A lot of times you get overconfident and you think, well, I have the resume now. I've been doing this 20 years. How would they not want me? They want someone in cardiology. I've been in cardiology for 10 years. I know all the doctors, and you kind of lose your drive. I've been there. I've done that, where I thought my background was going to get me certain roles, and it didn't, because I got overconfident. So you got always come in with that energy. Always have that excitement. Make them really feel that this is the job that you want, that this is where you want to be. Because if not, guys, they're going to pass up to someone else. Because believe me, again, out of 300 to 500 candidates, they're going to find someone that comes with that excitement and that energy. So make sure that you're doing that every time. This is something that you don't need training on. You could do it today. Think of a topic that really excites you. That's how you should feel when you're in these medical sales interviews with whatever position you're in. Because at the end of the day, guys, if it doesn't excite you and it's not natural and you have to fake it too much, is this really the job you want? I don't think so. I don't want to have to fake what I do every day. I truly love what I do every day. And I'm excited. I'm excited to help people out. I'm excited to see them succeed. When they call me or they send me a message saying, Joe, I got this new role, it makes me feel good. It really does. It's not being cheesy and saying, I'm like, oh, I really, I love when I see people do well, and I don't mean it. I really do. So I hope I exude energy and excitement. You have to do the same thing. So that is the first thing that you can do. And like I said, show all your transferable skills and get in that mindset that you can do this job, and you will stand out right off the bat, because it's very hard to ignore that as a hiring manager with someone that comes in with all that energy and showing those skills. You instantly become a great candidate. Okay. Next, you have to figure out, you want to come in and understand the role like you're an insider. And that, basically the reps, the candidates that come in like they already work for the company, it is incredible. And you see that once in a while. The ones that really stand out, they know so much. They did so much research about this role that they come off, it's like, how long has the guy worked here? And it's like, no, this is someone that just researched the past couple of days or week, or 2 weeks, whatever it was throughout the process, and learned that much about the role. Number one, it shows how much you really want this. And a lot of reps don't do it. That what bad looks like in this situation is looking at the company website, and then tell me when the company was created, how many people they have. You're located in Switzerland, but you also have a headquarters in Boston. You go on LinkedIn and you check out the manager's background, and she's a big tennis player, enjoys golf, and has 3 kids. Like, guys, that doesn't, who cares? I mean, I don't say who cares, but that doesn't mean anything to actually really want this job and show them how much you need to know to get it. So it's not just researching online. The main thing, and again, this is another non-negotiable. Some of you do this well, a lot of you do not. Every role, every time you get an opportunity, every time a recruiter reaches out to you, a HR personnel reaches out and says, we have a great opening for you. And they book the interview with you for, say, next Wednesday. You have to reach out to the individuals that work at that company. And non-negotiable is you reach out to as many as possible. And it's not that hard, guys, to create a little LinkedIn message, couple sentences, very simple. Hey, I'm applying for XYZ role, with Susan Smith. I see that you work with her. I would love to pick your brain and learn more, as I'm very excited for this opportunity. What's a good time to talk, Thursday or Friday? What's better for you? Something like that. Once you get them on the phone, you have to pick their brain and learn as much as you can about that role. Find out not only what they've done well there, what has made them successful, what it's like to work with that manager, what are the key drivers that manager has, what does he or she like or not like, what is the best thing that you can do to really ace this interview. Learn about the competition, learn about the challenges in the territory. Is your product available? Is it on the GPO, or is it is the reimbursement good? Can they get reimbursed? Is there any reimbursement? And a lot of times, guys, I've been at companies where I've taken roles and the reimbursement has been horrible. The greatest rep in the world is going to be able to overcome that. But bottom line is, you want to know all this before you get in front of that manager and actually have a game plan in place. Have it printed out, because if you get that much information, you can print out a 30, 60, 90. Now, I hate 30, 60, 90s. You're going to hear me say this all the time. I think they're dumb. I don't think they should be used anymore if, and this is the big if you get a specific game plan from the knowledge you gain from these individuals, then I think they're great. But if you can go on ChatGPT right now and print out, write me a sample medical sales 30, 60, 90, put the company name in, all that, it's going to create a very generic plan. No one cares about that. I want something as a hiring manager that I can take and actually go, wow, I can apply this, but it shows you put so much thought in and have a clear understanding of what the landscape is. That is incredible if you want to stand out in the competition. This is something that there's no excuses. You can do this without experience. And these are some of the tips that we teach and show reps in our training, that this is how they get the jobs. So, people ask me that all the time. Well, how does someone without experience get something over someone that has experience? This is a clear, easy tip. It's not easy in terms of the work that you have to put in, because you're going to get ghosted by a lot of people. And that's where people give up. They go, screw this. I don't want to waste any more time. So I'm just going to, this job doesn't mean that much to me. Or this guy, no one's responding to me. And meanwhile, they reached out to 5 people once. Guys, if you want to be in this field, you're going to get rejected. You're going to get ghosted nonstop. So you got to constantly have the persistence to come back. So if they didn't get back to you the first time, reach out to them again. Until they actually tell you, please stop contacting me, I do not want to talk to you, then I would back off. But until then, you're here to get this job and show them how much you want it. So sometimes they test you, guys. So you got to be persistent to get that information. But this is something, there's no excuses. You can't say, well, I don't have the experience, because companies have passed on experienced reps because reps do this. So definitely, again, make sure you're speaking to at least 3 reps or individuals that work at that company with that hiring manager before you sit in the room with that manager. Make that your goal. It might take reaching out to 50 people at the company because you're going to get ghosted, but once you get that one person on the phone, now you can use that person to get more information and get contact info from other reps. You could say, hey, I've reached out. We've been playing phone tag. Do you happen to have, Kathy Wilson's number, whoever it is, and try to get as much info, because you're going to do the same thing. Again, it's always showing them you can do the job by getting the job. So, and this is a perfect analogy of what you're going to be doing when you're in the field. Once you get a doctor, after you get ghosted by a ton, people don't even want to talk to you. You get one doctor that's really into your product. Now it's finding out and leveraging his relationships. Who does he work with? There could be a large group that he's a part of, or has, a list of different physicians that you could outright say, hey, Dr. Jones, who else do you think would benefit from this? Who do you think would like this that hey, can we set up a meeting with Dr. Smith? If you think he would love it, let's do that. And so you keep going. So doing the same thing in this process shows them that you understand what it takes, because they're going to evaluate you and say, I like this person. You might not have the experience, but they know the grit that it takes, and time and effort and persistence. And it's those skills that are much more important than just someone that's a seasoned rep. Because the seasoned rep, a lot of times, if for any of you guys that are, sports fans, because it always blows my mind, and say the NFL, for instance, there's these coaches that get fired, but they're constantly in the league. It's like, it doesn't matter what they do. Once they're in the league, they're going to constantly get passed around from team to team, and they're always going to have a job. This happens with a lot of reps too. There's a lot of outstanding reps out there, but there's a lot of reps that have experience, but they never really do anything great at all the companies they're at. They'll get laid off. The company, for downsized, whatever, maybe they will get fired for something, but they'll always are going to get another job. So sometimes you're going up against these individuals that on paper, they have 20 years experience, but at the end of the day, it's like, what did they really do? They just have experience that has kept them in the industry, but is that someone I want on my team? Or do I want someone that has shown me all these things that we talked about with the persistence, the grit and everything, and may not have the experience, but that's someone that I can work with because I know they're coming in with that fire, that energy that can bring the success, as we go later on. So that's why, guys, definitely do these things that I'm telling you. We're reaching out to the other individuals, being known as a company insider, that like you already work there. If you could come off that way throughout this process, you are going to get jobs, 100% guaranteed. Someone will hire you. You got to put the work in. So it's not easy. It takes a lot of time and effort. People say it's a full-time job when you're looking for a job. That's nonsense too. You don't spend 40 hours a week looking for jobs. You're doing it wrong if you're doing that. But you got to have a system in place, where you want to apply to 10 jobs instead of 100, but really hone in on contacting reps, building relationships, getting the information from them, being persistent, reaching out over and over until you get them on the phone. And you're going to see a big difference. So start doing that today, and I guarantee you're going to see improvement. Excuse me one second. Okay. Next is you want to be able to leverage what you already do have. So all of us have something, again, it goes back to those transferable skills. If you're someone that just likes to talk to people, again, that's a skill. Take something that you already have. If you do have sales experience, or you do have anything in your background that shows metrics, in this field, guys, it's all about the numbers, the metrics, the rankings, the improvement, the percent to quota, the growth that you're in sales. It's about making money. Of course, it's about helping patients out and helping doctors, being an asset in their business, in their practice. But at the end of the day, if the company doesn't make money, no one has a job. So they want to make money. They want to see you compete and succeed. So if you were a former athlete, the reason why they love athletes is because you compete. You are a competitor. Now, if you come into an interview, and this is something I would definitely ask questions to former athletes, if they were a high school sports star or, obviously a Division I athlete, even better. But you should know a lot of your stats. You should live for the stats. I was someone that was obsessed with statistics. I used to read the back of baseball and basketball and football cards and knew everyone's stat. I mean, I know that's a little crazy, but bottom line is I love stats. So I knew how many touchdowns I scored, how many home runs I hit, what was my batting average, all those things, because you're obsessed with competing, so you should know that. But if you already have that skill, again, you got to let them know this, because that's what it takes in this industry. If you don't know what you're ranked in your company, that's big red flag. No one's going to hire you. You have to know that, because a real high performing sales rep knows, I'm ranked 3 out of 45, but I just need, 4 more procedures before the end of the month. I'll be able to take over the number 1 position. That's the kind of approach that a high performer has. Obsessed with numbers, obsessed with the metrics. So anything in your background, show off your metrics. It might not be sales related. It could be sports related. It could be anything, sometimes even clinically related, where you're working with X number of patients every day in an office setting. Something that just highlights the numbers. The more that you can talk about numbers, and statistics, that is a huge, huge plus for these hiring managers, which they want to see. So make sure you're leveraging what you already have. Don't say, I don't have pharma, I don't have medical device experience, I'm not going to be good then, I'm not going to qualify. That's nonsense, guys. It's bullshit. Go out there, you have something. If you really want this, then let's start talking about the things that we can work on that you already have been working with in your past, and start highlighting that in the interviews. Excuse me. The next is talking like a closer and not like a beginner. All right. So what does this mean? When you're going into any interview, you have to have the acronyms down. You guys are going to hear so many acronyms. Man, I just threw out earlier a GPO. A lot of you might not even know what the heck I'm talking about. But a GPO is a group purchasing organization. So that's just one example, but when you go into an interview, make sure you know the acronyms. And again, to really know the inside scoop, you have to have those conversations with reps. You have to be talking to people that work. Number one, you want to speak to someone that's at the company. But if you're struggling and you just speak to someone that is at least in the field, that if they may not work for Boston Scientific, but they work in cardiology, and say, hey, what is an AFib? What's an SVT? What's a flutter? So when you have a better understanding of what these are, and you start, naturally including them in the conversation, because again, you're going to put all that research in, it's an amazing moment that you'll see them and you'll see their eyebrows raised, like, oh, okay. He doesn't have experience, but look at the work that he put in before this to learn this. They know that you put effort in before you actually, before you actually got the interview. Now, a stupid movie reference. I don't know if anyone here has seen My Cousin Vinny. I don't know if James is still on, that if he's seen that. I'm sure he has.
I've definitely seen My Cousin Vinny. The Utes.
Yeah, 2 Utes. But there's one scene when Marissa Tomei is on the stand, and obviously it's a great comedy, but there's a part that you could totally relate to when you're in an interview and you see the hiring manager, like their eyebrows raised because you just said something they can relate to. And she's talking about being in Alabama where you get your mud in your tires, and she talks about that when she's on the stand, and you see all the jurors, nodding their head going, oh, that's true. Now, only someone that has been in that situation can understand that. Now, again, it's a stupid comedy, but I'm just making the point that when you start talking like that and speaking their language, that you get respect. So not only during the interview process, but once you get in the field and really have a good understanding and own your craft, whatever field you're in, that's what high performers do, guys. They come home, they own this. They treat it like they're a physician, because the more that you know and can help actually educate a physician, because that's what gets you your sales, because you have credibility. If you don't know what the doctor's talking about and you try to fake it, you're gonna fumble. I mean, you're gonna fall over the place. So it's okay to understand once in a while and say, I'm sorry, what do you mean here? You don't have to just pretend all the time. But if you don't know something, always be taking notes, figuring it out, coming back, learning. This is what the top performers do. So you need to do this in the interview process. Come off like an expert. That's what it means by, talk like a closer, not a beginner. Beginners have no clue. I have multiple reps over the past month that hiring manager got back to me and was like, Joe, I'm sorry. This individual just didn't have enough knowledge of what we do here. If you go into a job that you think you're going to be selling constantly, and you don't even know that it's really more of an OR-based clinical support role, then again, they're not going to move forward to you because you don't even know what you're getting into. So the more that you can talk like a pro, you're going to get farther in the interview process. We're going to take a little break right now. James, just double check, see how we are. Any questions?
We got a couple questions. Before we get into questions, I got to say that was a great poll from My Cousin Vinny. That was a great reference.
You like that?
I loved it, dude. That was perfect. They explained it perfectly. If you know the movie, that's exactly how I would explain it. That's perfect.
It's been on a lot on, we still have these stupid like 27 HBOs and Cinemax and everything. I don't know what it comes on, but they have a lot of 80s and 90s movies that they just don't update.
So you're so old school. You have cable still. Jeez.
I know.
We got to get you updated there, man. We got a couple good questions. Joe, when you were breaking into the industry, what helped you stay confident before interviews?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that was getting back to, it was putting the work in ahead of time. So it's same in sports, when you were fired up to play a game, like everyone, you heard this from a million different sports stars throughout the years, motivational speakers. You win the games in the off season. And it's the same thing here. You win it before you get into the interview. So it's knowing exactly. I would make it a goal to know as much as I can about that hiring manager, what their key drivers are. That's the key. And what's a key driver? A key driver is something that this individual really cares about. Because the worst thing that we can do as sales reps, and this is when you're in the field with doctors, you assume that just because the company told you and they give you a new detail aid, that this is our new feature that we're going to highlight, that doctors care about that. And bad reps go out there and throw it in front of the doctor's face. Say, hey, look at this new sheet we have. You're going to love the new sheet. It's going to be great to steer your catheter. And they're like, I don't even use that sheet. Why do I care? Now, unless you know about their drivers ahead of time, make it about them, not about you and your company and your product. Make it about the physician first. Make it about the hiring manager first. So when you're talking to these reps, asking them straight up, what does Bob love? What doesn't he like? What are things that piss him off in an interview that reps do? And what are things that he loves doing in an interview? So some guys can get mad, and I've had this where people walked in with 30/60/90s, go, oh, by the way, I created this, and they drop it off at his desk. I had one manager actually hand it back to a rep and say, I didn't even ask for this. Why are you giving me something I didn't ask for? And again, he's right. You didn't, and he wanted the candidate to understand that you didn't ask me what I'm looking for. You just assumed because other people like 30/60/90s, you're giving me one. So that was a bad start for that rep. And obviously it didn't work out for them, but getting back to that, it's the work that you put in ahead of time, and that'll help your confidence. Who posted that? You are that guy, brother. Thank you. James?
Whoop. We got Keith Layden posted that over on LinkedIn. We have what separates someone from someone who interviews well from someone who actually gets hired.
And again, I don't want to keep harping on the work, but it's really a lot of people do interview well, but to show not only the hard work that we talk about and that research that you do about the individuals that you're interviewing with, but also the energy and excitement that you show, that you really like straight up say to them, I really want this job. Here's the reason why. I'm a perfect fit because of X, Y, and Z. I know what the challenges that you're having. I have a clear understanding of what I can do to provide a solution, and really let them know that you want it and you can't wait to hit the ground running, and let them feel that energy, guys, because that could be the difference between getting passed up from that seasoned rep, because the seasoned rep sometimes could just be the safe guy. That's the one that they go, you know what? This person has already done this before. At least they know the industry. They know cardiology. They know pain, whatever it is. It's like this safe bet, so if you don't have experience, you're going to be the riskier bet, but people will take that chance if you come with that energy and excitement. Because very rarely do I hear a hiring manager say, Joe, that person was great. They just brought too much enthusiasm. I mean, nobody wants a cheerleader bopping up and down and, making everyone uncomfortable because your energy is too much. But again, excitement, smiling, showing that you really want this, you want to be here, and letting that be shown in your actions along the way in the interview process, where you're following up with the recruiter, where you're following up with the hiring manager, showing that you're engaged. There's individuals we're getting ready to make offers to, and then they ghost us for a couple of days. Guys, I mean, I've been around a long time too, where I know when there's bullshit behind the scenes, where what else is going on? You're obviously looking at something else, or even worse, you don't have anything else, and this job doesn't excite you that much to get back to me within 24 hours. That's a huge red flag. So show that energy, show that excitement, and that'll help you.
Joe, we lost your audio.
Can you hear me?
No.
Okay. Hold on one sec. How about now?
No, go to your audio, your settings, and make sure you have the proper microphone selected, the Scarlett. Sorry for the technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen.
How about now?
No. Back out and come back in. So we got a couple more good questions coming in. Oh, hold on. Talk. No, they can hear me. They can't hear you.
If I disconnect it from the mic.
Talk.
Did he hit mute?
It's unmuted.
We got to go to your settings.
Tell him unplug his USB wherever it's plugged in and plug it back in.
Unplug your USB wherever it's plugged in and plug it back in.
Can you hear me?
No. Oh, the LinkedIn audio is working. They say they hear you. Let me check.
Do you hear him, James?
They say they hear you.
Then
I just can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
We're
Hold
good.
on.
Good now on the mic?
That's what it sounds like.
Well, hello?
Joe, talk.
James, let us know when we're back.
All right. I think we're good to go.
James? James?
Yep, we hear you. You're good.
James?
I
Sorry.
can't hear you live, so
James?
there we go. Try. Can I hear you? Can you talk? You're live, Joe. Your voice. Everybody can hear you. I just can't hear you on my end. Joe, we hear you. I just can't hear you on my end.
You're not responding to me. That's why I want to make
Yeah,
sure.
I can't hear you, but the audience can hear you.
Okay. So what do we do? Could I go forward?
Yeah, go forward. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. What about with any more questions from the crowd?
I got questions over here, so I'll read them off and then I'll watch for you to stop talking.
Okay.
All right. That's very
So I'm going to keep you on my phone since I can't hear you. I'm just going to let the phone
okay.
stay. Okay, guys, we're back. Sorry about that.
So we got Keith Layton. How important is it to be aware of different interview steps, purposes, steps/purpose? For example, interviewing with HR recruiter versus an actual hiring manager are both motivated by the same things, etc.
Okay, that was a lot in that question. So read that again. I apologize. That was a lot.
Do you need me to repeat that?
Yes, because that was a lot.
Oh, how important is it to be aware of the different interview steps/purpose? For example, interviewing with an HR/recruiter versus the actual hiring manager are both motivated by the same things, etc.
Well, again, it comes down to having that preparation and knowing ahead of time who your customer is, who are you speaking to, and the best way to know that is having conversations from other people that have gone through this process, so you'll know exactly what to expect. Now, you could have a few interviews under your belt where you've spoken to HR personnel, and it's going to be a little different dynamic than with a hiring manager. So you'll understand some of the basic questions they might ask. And that's great to know. If you can't speak to anyone ahead of time and get any information, I mean, literally just go on ChatGPT and say, what exactly would I expect? What are the differences between hiring it with a medical sales hiring manager versus an HR personnel? What are some of the questions or information they're looking for? You're going to get a lot of information that way too. But the best way to really know, because you can interview with multiple hiring managers or multiple HR personnel, and you could get different responses or different experiences from different people. So speaking to people that have gone through the process is the best way to set yourself up for success.
Okay, so we got how do I ask questions that show I'm serious about performing and not just getting the job?
Well, first off, the main thing is to ask questions that you really care about, that you really have questions about. Don't have pre-scripted questions that are just generic. Oh, this sounds good. Like, no, really come up with things that, you should be doing enough research that makes you want to ask a question. You shouldn't do all this research and then you're like, I know everything I need to know. No, there's going to be areas that, for instance, they might say, well, this territory is traditionally done very poorly. Now, if you're going into a low-ranked territory and it's always done poorly, the first question you should ask is why? What is going on in this territory that is making it do poorly? That should be question number one. And that should you don't have to write that one down. I always suggest you go in there with a list of questions, but you should also have questions come up throughout the interview process when the manager is telling you more about the role. So always have questions that you really genuinely want to know the answers to. They're going to get you further. They're going to show that you have a sincere interest in this role than generic scripted questions that quote unquote sound good.
Okay, we got what do I do if I get a question that I don't know the answer to?
Say it. Just say that. Say you don't know the answer, but you'll get the answer. So if there's something that, they ask you, 12 years ago when you were at Organon or whatever company you were at, what were you ranked? Or something that they could just be testing you that, I always knew my numbers and my rankings and all that, but there's times you didn't know every detail about your past, especially we've been doing this a long time. Just be honest. I mean, a lot of times, guys, they could be testing you to see if you BS them. And if you do that, you lose credibility. So again, it's showing them how you would act in the field. That could be a test question. And if they see if you're trying to make something up just to give a good answer, that's a red flag. Because if you're going to do that to them, you're going to do it with a doctor. So don't lie. Just be honest. You don't know something, say, I don't know, but I'm going to get you the info. The good thing is, that gives you an opportunity because before the end of that call, you are definitely leaving with that contact information from that hiring manager. You're leaving with a business card. You're leaving with something to contact that individual, and you are getting him that answer, at some point in your follow-up, in your thank you. So that's a good place to be. If you don't know something, showing them that you're following up. Again, it could be another test, but whether it is or it's not, you want to get that answer to them anyway.
Oh, okay. We got how do I stop second guessing myself whether I'm qualified or enough?
You got cut off. Sorry about that. How do I what?
How do I stop second guessing myself whether I'm qualified enough?
James?
How do I stop second guessing myself whether I'm qualified enough?
I mean, if you're going to keep second guessing yourself, you shouldn't be in this business. You gain confidence by building your knowledge, by learning more. The more that you know about a role or about an industry. So go out there and just have conversations, do things, learn, speak to reps, build relationships, speak to doctors. For an individual that is even looking to get an internship to break in, go to doctor's offices during the day. I'm not saying this is going to definitely happen. It's not easy, but when you're with physicians that are family or in your family, ask them, can I shadow? Can I spend a day in the office? Can I intern here? Is there anything I can do? Do whatever you can to learn, and the more you're going to learn, the less insecurity you're going to have. But if you go in this constantly insecure and you're not doing anything about it, then you don't belong here. Don't get into this field because you're dealing with doctors and patients' lives. And, there's some real stuff that goes on in operating rooms and in hospitals out there. You want to make sure that you're confident because no one is going to work with an insecure rep. They're not going to want them in their procedure room. They want the ones that are in control. That doesn't mean the guy that's just talking, barking orders. The best reps are the ones that are quiet in the operating room, but controlled. They're there when they see something that's not going right or someone is struggling. They give their input, but nice and controlled. So the more you know is going to get rid of that insecurity.
Okay. How do I tell my story so it sounds like a value add, not just a resume dump?
And that's a great topic, which we were going to cover too. So it's a great segue. Storytelling is everything, guys, in the interview process. So when they ask you, tell me a little bit about yourself. Again, I'll give you what bad looks like. I'm Joe Licata. I'm from, North Jersey. I grew up in Florham Park, New Jersey. I went to Villanova University where I was I was a biology major. And after I got out of school, I got my first job in selling air purifiers and blah, 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 blah. That's reading your resume, guys. You don't want to read your resume. You want to tell a story, and what does that mean for telling a story? You have to give them something that is something that's not on the resume. When they say, tell me about yourself, yeah, of course you're going to walk through your professional history, but you don't want to step-by-step read your resume. That bores people. They got their resume. They know what it says. You want to highlight things in your life that's not on the resume, so you could talk about those skills or those passions that you have. As a former D1 athlete, I always loved competition. I won XYZ awards, because of the hard work I put in. Like, show things that say about you and your character. It could be something traumatic that happened in your life that adds to your story, that made you want to get into healthcare. Your grandfather had Alzheimer's, or unfortunately someone in your family got in a car accident, and you learned how much the orthopedic surgeon was able to save them and they were able to walk again, or whatever. It could be something like that made you want to get into healthcare. So the more that you can show that passion and be able to tell a story, then that is key. So this goes hand in hand when you're answering questions, when you hear, why do these companies love the STAR method? Again, for some of you people that don't know what that is, it's situation, task, action, result. So they love when reps answer in that format, not to actually read out, okay, so the situation was this. Then I was tasked with this, challenge. And then the action I took was blah. No, but it just helps you frame a story. Tell me about a time that a doctor, was difficult to close. Oh, Dr. Jones from Robert Wood Johnson in New Jersey. He's a cardiologist, extremely difficult because he loves Medtronic. Medtronic is a very, long-standing partner with the physician. He uses them for all their procedures. So my task was to get them to switch at least 30% of the business to Boston Scientific. So what I did was I had Dr. Jones meet with Dr. Addison, who's on our speaker bureau at Boston Scientific. Huge fan, really loves us for VT cases. He talked to Dr. Jones about doing those VT cases specifically and only for VT cases to try us out. And within 6 months, I was able to convert over 50% of the business to Boston Scientific, which resulted in $500,000 worth of revenue. That's the kind of story that they like to hear in an answer. The story that they want to hear in your background, again, is things that they can't read on a resume. Tell me what that is, and tell me the best reps are able to show those transferable skills and abilities that you gain throughout that can make you an outstanding rep.
What are 2 or 3 things that helped you stand out when you were starting?
James?
What are 2 or 3 things that helped you stand out when you were starting?
Number one, I outworked everyone for every interview by far. I always put in the research, the calls with the reps. I did all that. That was number one. Number two, for me, breaking into the industry, I tried right out of college and it didn't work for me. And so I actually listened to individuals that were already in the industry and worked for a company at the time called Carico, which sold air purifiers and water filtration systems. So this was truly like Cutco type sales, knocking on doors, going to offices, going to hotels, restaurants, selling from homeowners to business owners to doctors to anyone that would listen to me and try to get my air purification units in their buildings or their homes. So I got that true grit, like hardcore sales experience where I literally got doors slammed on my face all the time. So being able to do those 2 things, I think at the end of the day, where most hiring managers, put me towards the top of the list many times was because I was able to show how much I want to get in this industry and how much I want to be at that specific company. And I prove how hard I work from my past. I didn't just say I'm a hard worker, no one's going to outwork me. I gave examples from my past on everything that they would ask me because I've done it, through the different challenges throughout trying to break in. So it's highlighting that, not just talking about how hard of a worker you're in, being able to show what I've done trying to get this job in the past is what helped me get ahead.
How do I keep the momentum going after I haven't heard back?
Well, you definitely got to follow up. There's no rule that everyone asks me this all the time. How many days in between contacting someone? Guys, you got to just use common sense. The goal is you want to get the expectations of what the next step is in the process before you leave the interview. So if the hiring manager says, we'll get back to you, that's not good enough, guys. You can't leave there. Well, what kind of timeline are we looking at? What is the next stage in the process? They should tell you, well, we're going to bring back 3 reps for a second round of interviews by next week. Okay, so when should I hear by? Because I really want this. I really want to move forward. If they're not going to let you close them on the spot, they should at least give you some sort of timeline. And you want to hold them to that. So when you are following up, and you didn't hear back, the recruiter should be in the middle of this too to help you out. But if for any reason, even if they're not getting back to you, you want to go by what they said with that timeline and be aggressive. Don't be annoying. Have that fine line of aggressiveness and persistence without being annoying. Okay, so do that, and don't give it a certain amount of time. Go with your gut with that, but don't just give it one contact. You didn't hear back until someone says, Joe, we're moving forward with another candidate. Then it's okay to keep following up, especially if they told you that's okay. So make sure before, and I'm going to follow up. Is a good time, should I know by Friday? Okay, great. So if you don't hear by Friday, it's okay to follow up by Friday. So just use that, but get the information before you leave the room, so you're not wondering what's a good day or time to follow up.
What are some smart questions I can ask at the end of the interview that will make me stand out?
Yeah. One of the questions that I like that goes over really well, it's, if you hire me and I crush it in the first year, what did I do well? Now, I love this question. I love the way it's phrased because you're already having them envision what it's like to hire you. And then they should give you some tips of what success looks like. So you have a framework, because all these questions, a lot of times you're always thinking of the skills or something that you've already done in your past that you can highlight based on what their answer is. So if they say, well, obviously you were very persistent if you did well, because it takes multiple calls to get to physicians. And after they give the answers, like, well, that's great. I'm so happy you did that. You answered that way because I'm very confident for the persistence that it took in my previous role, and then, tie in the connections that whatever you've done in the past that show that you've done all those things with other companies. So they should be able to give you a lot of that insight. So I think that's a great question. I think finding out the other reps in the team that are the top reps, who are your top reps and why? Because my goal would be to get their contact info before the next interview. So if they name 3 reps, before the end of the call, I'd be like, hey, Bob, thanks for meeting with me today. This is after you close them. Again, I know you mentioned those 3 reps. Would I be able to get their contact information so I can reach out before our next interview? See what they say. They might tell you, well, I got to reach out to them first. I can't just give out contact info. But one thing is a guarantee. When they send you that contact info, you're 100% moving on to the next round. And if they don't, at least you know who the reps are. So target those reps to contact, via LinkedIn or any other avenue, so you can get in their set up calls so you can learn what they do so well and makes them successful.
Yeah, here's a good one. Can you walk me through how you answer why should we hire you as if you were a closer?
if you're a closer, I mean, again, this is summing up all that you've learned with your pre-work and during the actual interview itself. So you must know your 3 whys. The 3 whys are, why should we hire you for the XYZ job? They could also ask you, why medical sales? What is it about medical sales that you love? And then also they're asked, why do you want this company? So you should have those, prepared. It's going to change company to company because each company is different. Some are bigger, some are small, but you should have those answers prepared before you go into that interview. You should know why you're the best. It could be your experience. It could be your relationships, but at the end of the day, for me, because I always had I went to many different therapeutic areas, so I didn't have 30 years in cardiology. I had years in pain. I had years in anesthesia, then I had years in cardiology. So when I got into a new field, the one thing that I would always say is the reason why I'm always successful and why you should hire me, because I identify my customers' key drivers and sell to them. And in the end, that's what makes me an asset for my physicians. I make it about them and not about me. And that's where I'm able to bring value.
That's all I got for today, Joe. Nothing else has come in.
Awesome. Well, I mean, we covered a lot. Some of the topics that we were going to go over were answered in those questions. I want to thank everyone today. Before we close, again, guys, please, if you want a copy of this, or the recording of this, or any other content, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Unfiltered Medical Sales Coaching. Thank you, James, for putting that up. Also, for all lobby members, thank you guys for joining. Anyone that's a lobby member or individuals that are on this call and you're looking for one-on-one coaching with RepPath, please use the promo code. It's Licata, Licata. Message me via LinkedIn, shoot me an email, whatever it takes. It's joe@reppath.com, or message me Licata, Licata, so you could get additional discounts in the training. And starting next week, guys, I'm excited that we are going to be doing multiple podcasts every week. Every Monday at 3 p.m., we're going to be doing advanced training. So it's going to be information for reps that are already in the industry and looking to advance in their career. So we're going to be taking on more complex topics that are more specific for individuals that have already been in the industry. And on Wednesdays, we're going to continue to do, a lot of our entry level breaking in. It's still topics that everyone can find value in, whether it's resume, interview prep, career guidance, networking, storytelling, whatever that is. We're going to be doing those twice a week. So every Monday at 3 and Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Please make sure you join. I appreciate everyone's support. Thank you guys for listening in, and we'll talk next week. Thank you.